Good morning, y'all. Today is July the 21st. It is our 7th week doing weekly garden tours in the summer of 2018. We've had so much rain this week. Even now, it's 97% humidity outside, but it's nice and cool. It's about 6:30 in the morning. I'm really excited to walk through the garden today with you guys. This morning is amazing. It's about 76 outside. Let's go check out this garden. Do you see where the sun is on the tree line? The garden is fully lit by 8 o'clock, which on a regular morning means that's about the point you don't want to be down here anymore because it's getting really hot. However, it's going to be a really overcast day, so I think we'll probably be out here a little longer this morning. I'm curious how much rain we actually got. Oh, my rain gauge was all underneath the zinnias. I don't think that's really accurate. Let's check the other one. Half an inch last night. I really wish that I could just impress upon you how amazing it is outside right now. Oh, look. I don't know, some mornings are just like the perfect mixture of the right lighting and the right temperature and the birds singing and everything's freshly rained on and healthy. It just makes my heart like, oh, I love it. I noticed yesterday that these sweet dumpling squashes looked like they were doing pretty well. We got a couple of those. Here's another one down here. This is a pretty prolific squash. This variety was marked as a bush variety whenever I got the seeds. Obviously it's not one. We need to lift this up and get some mulch down below it. See, there's more. It's grabbing hold of this fence, which it's probably gonna go all over it, and that is a-okay with me. I think that'll be really pretty. And over on this side we have one that's called Gouda. Here, it's very similar to a Long Island cheese squash. It's a winter squash. And here we have one that's called Sibley, which is like a more elongated shape. The Moon and Stars melon has just started really sprawling, which is wonderful because it did get such a late start, but you can see it's really starting to put off a lot of blossoms. I've been harvesting so many tomatoes lately. I actually have a lot to do today by way of preserving. Anytime I have tomatoes that have somehow got damaged during growing, like that ended up with, you know, insects damage or really bad blossom end rot or sun scald or something like that, I take them back and I give them to my chickens. Not the hens that are currently penned up, but the roosters that we have just free ranging, because I want them to carry those seeds and just leave them around the property, so we might get some wild tomatoes from it, because I think that's really fun. My watermelons are getting large. They look really good. And look at this. How wonderful. Oh look, I haven't seen this yet. The corn is starting to tassel. Corn's finally taller than me. The sunflowers are too. Someone recently commented on a video from May when we were planting all this and made a comment about how much growth there's been since then. This is pretty cool. I've never grown corn before. This is glass gem, which is very beautiful and colorful. Jeremiah trimmed the branches of all the trees up front because so many people slow down to take a look at the garden. Now, the way we planted this was that the sunflowers on the front were the smaller headed ones, the multi-headed ones, and then along the back are the mammoths, which will get the really huge heads and get really tall. Oh my goodness, look. It's starting. Now the in-ground okra plants are getting really large. They don't have any blossoms on them yet. However, I can see where they will be. So we will probably be getting okra off of this within the next few days. Okra grows so fast and it is very prolific here. We're in zone 7B. If you have a hard time growing in your zone because of the heat, okra is a really good thing to grow. It loves the heat, it thrives in it. And we have had very, very hot days. Yesterday was 103, but the okra right now is probably the most productive thing in my garden. I only have like 9 plants in the beds, and we are literally harvesting just handfuls of okra every day. This week I'm going to be heavily weeding these beds and pulling out, like, I've got some basil here that has gone to seed and different things. I'm going to be pulling out a lot of that stuff, remulching this, re-amending the soil, and getting ready for fall planting. It started raining. It's really light and it's still very sunny, so I don't know how long it's going to last. I guess I should probably get my camera out of it. Let's head back down there. Showers passed. That lasted about 5 minutes. We've had so many thunderstorms lately, just all week. Even when they're not forecasted, we've had thunderstorms just come out of nowhere, little rain showers. On one hand, it's fantastic. I haven't had to water the garden in like, I don't know, I think 10 days or something like that, because the rain has just been so regular. On the other hand, rain can kind of wreak havoc on things. I mean, we've had a lot of split tomatoes. I've been having to process stuff really fast or else it goes bad. Also, just blight, fungal, and wilts, all that is kind of running a little rampant. Been doing a lot of pruning lately. I think that if I had to choose between really dry conditions or conditions how they've been this week, I would totally choose this, because honestly, the damage is probably equal, but when it's really dry, it costs me money because I have to water my garden. I think the thing we're probably going to be harvesting the most of today is peppers. These are jalapenos. This is a pimento pepper. And I've got several more jalapenos over here. Haven't been rushing incredibly to harvest all of these because I've been so busy staying on top of the tomatoes because they do crack with the rain, and I've been making sure that they're picked regularly so that I don't lose a lot of them to damage. For those of you who have been watching these garden tours from the very beginning, this is the little Keuka Melon plant that was just barely sprouting out of the ground when we started this 7 weeks ago. Yesterday I actually picked a Keuka Melon over off of my big mature plant, and I was eating it, and I squeezed some of the seeds out and stuck them in the ground right there because there were only 2 plants growing, and I thought, well, they might still have time to grow big. So I started some new ones there. Some of my pepper plants are just tiny. I don't know if they're going to end up getting bigger or if they just got stunted from having such a cool spring. All of the spaces in this bed are going to be planted for fall. This trellis is going to be planted probably for a second wave of summer. Oh, look here. These are edamame. Look how weird they are. They're so fuzzy. I've actually never grown these super successfully. Oh, heck no. So these are aphids, and there are quite a lot of them on this plant. There are a couple ways that you can get rid of aphids. I don't put anything on my plants like precautionarily, like I don't do any sort of chemicals or pesticides. I don't, you know, automatically put anything on. But when I see something like this, I mean, this plant has probably 25, 30 bugs on it. I'm gonna get a spray bottle as soon as I get done with this video. I'm gonna get a spray bottle of soapy water and come out and spray all these bugs and spray this plant down. And now that I've seen them, this is my first time to see them in the garden this year actually. We had them pretty bad last year. I'm going to stay on it, you know, keep an eye out for them and be sure to spray whenever I see them. When I started this video, a ladybug landed on my hand, which is a good thing. We always want to see ladybugs in the garden. There are cucumber beetles that look a lot like ladybugs, but their bodies are longer and thinner. They're not good. But ladybugs eat aphids, so we want to encourage them, and you can actually purchase ladybugs. I have not done that because we have a lot of them, and so I don't want to bring anything else in. I tried to mess with the ecosystem of the garden as little as possible. But if you don't have ladybugs and you do want to add them in, they are very beneficial insects to have in your garden. The problem with doing any sort of like broadcast chemical on your garden, something that just kills bugs, is that, yeah, you won't have to deal with aphids on your edamame, but you won't have ladybugs landing on your finger either. Those sort of things, they kill everything. They kill the negative pests, but they also kill the beneficial insects too, including your pollinators. Your garden won't grow without bees, and so putting chemicals and poisons on the garden that kill the bees, you can see that that could be a pretty big problem. It's no surprise to those of you who have been with me for a little while now that I have a very laid back approach to gardening. If a plant dies, it dies. I try really hard to keep everything healthy. I spend a lot of time in my garden. I've invested a lot in it. However, I enjoy the experience. I enjoy seeing the way that nature works. I enjoy seeing the relationship of the insects. And while I will step in when I see like an aphid infestation on a plant, and I'll use natural means such as soapy water or pure and organic neem oil, I don't like to just automatically try to eradicate every insect from the garden, because that to me completely ruins the experience. My eggplants have finally started producing. I've got a couple more little ways down here. I'm so excited. I think they're actually really going to pull through and we'll be able to get some harvest. Also, I noticed that I have another bell pepper coming up on this plant, and then like 80% of them failed. So I have yet to harvest a bell pepper, which kind of breaks my heart because that's one of my favorite things for breakfast is sauteed peppers with like eggs, scrambled eggs, and some sauteed greens. But soon, we'll have bell peppers soon. I've been harvesting my tomatoes just a tiny bit green when I can because of all this rain. I don't want them to split, so I harvest them like this and let them continue to ripen on the counter. However, that's not my preferred way of doing things. I much prefer for tomatoes to ripen on the vine. The flavor is so much better. However, I would rather have a tomato that finished ripening in the house but isn't rotten than one that ripened on the vine, cracked, and, you know, got insects on the inside of it before I could eat it. Here's an example of the yuckiness I was talking about on my plants from the rain. A lot of our leaves are looking wilty and yellow. It's not too bad and the overall plant is still okay, but we've had to do a lot of pruning, especially of the lower leaves, and thinning out the branches just to make sure there's airflow and that everything stays healthy. Got a few good ones, a couple of Dr. Wyches and a pineapple striped. Still just a little green on the shoulders. They'll do okay in the house. These are poblanos. When they're green, they're called Poblano Peppers, but when they turn red, we call them anchos, which this is where we get chili powder, ancho chili powder. And what you do if you want to make chili powder is you wait until they get completely ripe and they turn red. You can cut them in half, which is preferred, or you can leave them whole. I'm planning on cutting them in half. And you can put them in a smoker and then finish them off in the dehydrator. Grind it and you have chili powder. But they're also really good if you pick them green. This is a pretty common dish in Mexican cuisine to have stuffed poblanos. Actually, just gonna use one of these kind of in place of like what I was talking about, using a bell pepper and a breakfast scramble. This plant is loaded. It's got quite a lot of peppers on it. So this is a chili called Mirasol, and it's a hot pepper, but I don't know how hot, and I'm kind of curious, and I'm feeling brave. That's good. It's not hot, like, it's not Scoville high hot, like jalapeno or anything like that, but this has got one of the richest flavors of a pepper I think I may have ever tasted. It is so good. It's got a little bit of heat to it, but a lot of smokiness. I don't like hot things. So for me to say that a pepper that's considered hot is good, it's not very hot at all. A little bit higher up, I'm getting to the seeds. It's definitely got more of a burn to it, but still really, really, really good flavor. I think this is the only plant I have of this. I wish I had grown more of them. It's a hot pepper. I'm kind of avoiding eating the seeds up here. Good flavor. I will definitely grow this again. I probably won't eat them raw in the garden though. Oh my gosh. Don't judge that pepper's heat based on my reaction though. I do not do hot things. The other day one of our friends was over and was eating some of this Tabasco peppers out of here. And he's like, oh, you know it's good when it makes you hiccup. I'm like, if it makes you hiccup, that means I want to spit it out. I do not want to eat it. I do not enjoy the experience of eating really hot food. I used to really like hot food, but after being pregnant multiple times and all the heartburn that ensued, I can't do it anymore. This has been the story of the last few days when it comes to tomatoes. I accidentally grabbed a green one, but it's fairly cracked, so we'll just cook that sucker up green. Just be another reason for me to fry some green tomatoes. I feel like my sinuses are still like, evacuate. Every time I think these zinnias are about to throw in the towel, I come out to new fresh blossoms. I hear a critter. Kind of nervous because I'm in sandals. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was just a frog. I don't know. It didn't sound small. This is the second year for me to completely tank at growing tomatillos. My plants got huge. They were riddled with bugs, and I wasn't very proactive at keeping them off. So a lot of the fruits have holes in them. We've gotten some, but I mean, just see that little caterpillar. These have been the bane of my tomatillos this year, and like I said, I have not done anything to really keep them off. I am going to do a video soon about some different garden pests and how to handle them, and I'll tell you what my research has said, but don't look at my tomatillos as an example. One thing that I just can't seem to get right on tomatillos is spacing. My plants always get massive. Do you see this? I mean, this is just all the tomatillo jungle. That's a 4x4 foot bed. It has 2 plants in it, and they're just huge. This right here, that's just a couple of plants, just in this huge portion. I don't know. I just don't think I've done a very good job on it. Tell me if you've had success growing tomatillos and what's the trick, because this is my second year to grow them and get just next to nothing out of it. Here's a very, very cracked climbing triple crop tomato, which I'm going to save the seeds for this. Got one more in there that I was holding on to, planning on saving the seeds of. Hello, my love.
Good morning.
Thank you. He's such a good one. Jeremiah takes all of the thumbnail photos for all of these videos that you guys see, all the garden tours where there are good pictures of me in my garden. He takes those. I was a photographer for a really long time, but whenever he and I met, I had 2 young boys, and I had about 4 pictures of me with my boys, because I took everyone else's picture and no one ever took mine. And it was something that really like deeply hurt my feelings. Like I wanted that, but I didn't really know how to ask for it. And when Jeremiah realized how badly that hurt my feelings, he took pictures of me, and he always has. So that's something that's really precious to me. I have lots of pictures of me with my babies and of me in my garden, because he always takes pictures of me, and that really moves my heart. Here. I think this side of my Kajari melons is really kind of reaching the end. It's not really putting off any more flowers and it's really drying up. However, this side has really begun taking off since I pulled out the beans, and it's no longer having to compete for nutrients in the soil. Lots of flowers being set, lots of good fruits hanging. Looks like a couple here fell. This one looks okay, but this little one cracked and is full of ants. I'll throw that in the compost. These melons are delicious. Kind of a honeydew. It's a green flesh, but it has a real sweet cantaloupe type flavor, so we love those. You guys asked that I would start typing out the names of the different heirlooms that I mentioned during these tours down in the show notes, and I'm going to do that. So anything that I mentioned today, I'm just gonna make a list down there so that you have the spelling. If you wanna try to source the seeds, you can just go Google those names, because I have gotten seeds from all over the place, so you might not be able to find everything at one place. If you guys were watching my vlog the other day, you saw my first run-in with this lady. And someone asked me why I didn't kill it whenever I saw that big, huge spider that gave me the massive heebie-jeebies whenever I stuck my hand in its web. And the reason I didn't kill it is because it's not bad for it to be there. It'll catch pests. And again, like I said, I really don't like to mess with the ecosystem if I can help it. I like to let it do its own thing. The only time that I'll ever come in and remove something is if I feel like it is a threat to myself, my children, or my plants. And in the case of that spider, if someone did get bit by it, it would hurt. It would be like a bee sting, but it would not be deadly by any means. And, you know, for me, I think that that spider is a really good opportunity for me to show my kids that they would be aware while they're in the garden, because if they learn to be aware and not stick their hand in the web of a riding spider, then perhaps that awareness could protect them from something that could be potentially much more dangerous. My goodness, these Tabasco peppers are relentless. This is just 3 plants, and they just don't stop. The tomatoes over here, these are just some extra odds and ends. They're doing very well. We came out here the other day and tied them up. Like, you can see where these branches were touching the ground and they had started to root. But we went ahead and put them up, try to keep them healthy. Goodness gracious. More okra, much more okra. The amount of okra we're picking is insane. Look at the stalks of this plant. It's massive. Just before I'd ever grown okra, I had no idea how it grew. So when these giant trees grew in my garden beds, I was pretty surprised. This year I was anticipating it and planted it accordingly. Last year it was way too close together. Now I have to harvest the other varieties. The okra varieties that I'm growing this year are Jing Orange, Texas Hill Country, Clemson Spineless, Burgundy Red, and an accidental hybrid that came from saving seeds that cross-pollinated last year. So far, for all of them, I have tried frying them. We've diced them up and frozen them. The next thing I'm going to do is pickle some. I would say they're all wonderful. The Texas Hill Country is like a squatty little one. I really like this one fried like in slices. The Clemson Spineless is super soft. It doesn't get those hard ribs until it gets a lot larger. These and the Jing Oranges are really good if they're picked small like this and fried whole. The Burgundy Red, they're really interesting. They have these little tassels at the top and they have great flavor. And this is my little okra accident. This came last year from a Clemson Spineless and a Burgundy Red pollinating one another. They have the tassels of the Burgundy Red, the softness of the Clemson Spineless. I am going to try to isolate some of these blossoms, hand pollinate them from the same plant, and see if I can't start stabilizing this variety. because I really like it, but it's an F1 hybrid, so it's going to take a little bit of work to get it stabilized where it can actually be saved and consistent. Now I know I am touting the wonders of good okra, and a lot of you are like, ew, okra, it's so slimy. The stuff inside of an okra pod that makes it slimy, it's called mucilage, and it's actually the same stuff that is in like an aloe vera leaf, and it is very, very good for your digestive tract. If you deal with a lot of inflammation or problems through your digestive tract, okra is a very good thing to add to your diet. Now, once it's battered and fried, I can't really tout the health benefits at that point. We eat it like that just because we enjoy it. However, if you put it in stews, you can actually blend it. There are smoothie recipes where you can blend okra into smoothies. You really can't taste it. I'm not being one of those people that's like, oh, you can't taste it, and you're like, this tastes like a tree. It's actually, you can actually hide it with, you know, chocolate, and it still gives you the benefit of that mucilage into your digestive tract. So if that is something that you would like to explore, I really highly suggest looking at the benefits of adding okra to your diet. And if you plant it, you can be prepared to add a lot of it to your diet. We are harvesting this much almost every single day. Basil. This is actually the only basil in my garden. This and that little tray that is rooted to the ground right at the beginning of the garden that hasn't gone to seed yet because I've actually properly pruned it back. To keep your basil from flowering whenever it develops these little stalks of flowers, you just want to pinch off the top. So what I do is whenever I come to use it, I just pull the tops off the stalks, which forces it to grow bushier instead of shooting up sprouts and putting off seeds. I have tons of basil planted all throughout my garden because it's a very, very good companion plant, especially to tomatoes, which, you know, I love to grow tomatoes. It's great at warding off certain pests. So I've got it everywhere. I have way more basil than I can possibly even hope to use planted in this garden because we plant it for the benefits of pest control. So this is kind of my little basil patch that I actually use. This is a lot of basil. It grows super fast, especially in the summer like this. And I'm actually gonna be telling you guys later this week some different ways to use basil. It's one of my favorite things that we grow in my garden. I love basil. Benjamin just comes out and just eats it. It's the only 3-year-old I've ever known that just loves to come out and fill up on whatever he can pick. Look here. This is a good friend. My cherry tomatoes are wild. I'm not even gonna pick any of these today. I picked 6.5 pounds just a couple of days ago. Filled the dehydrator up. I love dehydrated cherry tomatoes. You just slice them in half. Put them on your dehydrating rack. Then they're really good packed in oil with Italian seasonings, a little bit of salt, or you can just eat them plain. The sugar's caramelized and they get a really sweet flavor. Trellis melons are going really well. These are the banana melons. These small ones we have not put any support on yet. But as you can see, we're using these plastic mesh produce bags to tie up the larger ones. This one is getting pretty close. A lot of you have messaged me and say, how do I know when my melons are ready to pick? Their stems will dry up like this. And this one's just starting to. Here in a couple days, that'll dry up so much that it just falls off, which makes it quite simple. If you are growing them on a trellis, as they get larger, you definitely want to put them in some sort of support, whether you use those bags, whether you use something reusable that's fabric or pantyhose. That way whenever they dry up and fall off, they don't fall to the ground. We've actually lost a couple of melons this year because we just missed it when it was starting to get ripe. Since having some more space, my chard has just gone crazy, and I am not complaining because I love chard. All of these beds I'm going to be remulching this week. I'm pulling out everything that is done and getting ready to replant. Look at these lima beans. They have mounded up on top of this trellis. This is nuts. And look how beautiful they are. These are called Christmas lima beans. These peppers have made up for all of my other pepper failures this year. Corbaci sweets. I think I will always grow this in remembrance of the year that they were my main sweet pepper to flourish. These beds on the end have been so wildly neglected this year. A lot of this is going to get torn out early. A lot of these tomato plants, I just stuck them down here because I had so many extra plants and I had extra space to fill, but I haven't given them any attention whatsoever. So I've been picking off tomatoes here and there, and they're doing okay. They're just laid all out in the beds. These are sweet Carneros pink, and here is a black Icicle. I mean, there's just weeds that are massive. This bed is just not my proudest display as to my garden skills. So a lot of this is coming out for fall planting. I am gonna just reset these large portions of the garden, amending the soil, remulching, and just getting ready to plant new things for fall. I love fall gardening. I can't wait to talk more about that. I'm gonna be putting a video up tomorrow telling you about planning your fall garden, so keep a lookout for that. See, all of this is basil that just has completely gone to seed, which means that next year there is going to be basil volunteering all in this. Okay, I'm just gonna keep this very real so that you guys realize how much experimenting I'm doing as far as this garden goes. Well, here's a pepper plant that is not staked. It's a Chilaca plant, so it's growing these medium hot peppers. Basil, which is absolutely bolted and I've done nothing about. This is a tomato plant that volunteered from last year, and I actually just let it. This is a pretty big tomato plant. I actually may end up moving this. I don't know, it might be too big to move without killing it, but whatever, we'll see what happens. Here's a pepper plant. This is one of the bell peppers that I planted that I thought failed. This is a weed, a massive one. Over here is a marigold. I actually started that from seed at the beginning of this season. Here are some poblanos that are just starting to turn. I'm gonna let those get a little bit more red before I pick them. The whole thing is just a hot mess. But you know what? I think that we should be willing to allow some hot messes in our garden for the sake of learning how things grow. And just because something goes a little wild doesn't mean that it's a total failure. Here is my little chicken feeder planter that I planted morning glories in. Now my goats have gotten in this yard and eaten these off the fence about 4 times now. They finally reached the top of the fence, and look, I have my first morning glory blossoming on here. Here's another little volunteer tomato. That one's coming up from last year. I'm telling you, these 2 beds have been just the most neglected. Here are my Amish pastes. Look at this tomato. Can you even? That is a massive paste tomato. I can't wait to pick that and find out how much it weighs. Next week marks 2 months that we've been doing these weekly garden tours. In the next couple of weeks, a lot of things are going to change in this garden. It's really time for us to transition out of the summer season and into really gearing up for fall. The second wave of beans, the second wave of peas, and the beginning of all of the root vegetables and all the green leafy things. I have a hard time with this season, if I'm being completely honest. It's hard for me to tear things out and transition from the really fruitful seasons back into the time of waiting for things to grow again. But it's an exciting time. I've so loved sharing this garden year with you guys, and I can't wait to share with you what's next. Thank you so much for watching. I bless you all. Until next time.